rest. So obviously there are extenuating circumstances where you have to transport because you feel you're in an unsafe environment, or the family's distraught and you just can't avoid it any other way. But you're not transporting them to the hospital so we can, quote, get them back, which I know you guys know, but oftentimes the family have different expectations when you start transporting them. Now they're going to go to the hospital and the hospital is going to save them. Unlikely to happen.
Okay, does anybody have anything they would like to bring up? No? Okay, so let me just, let's just recap. So we said that Ray put out about the 2% raises and no increase in our health plan. We are purchasing, I said before, for those of you that signed on a little later, we're purchasing or in the process of purchasing PAPR devices for all the RPS units and all the RMC ambulances. So there will be 2 units on each RPS truck and 2 units on each ambulance. The individual providers will be issued a hood, okay, which they will keep with them. They'll have to remember to bring it to work with them because there will not be extra hoods, for them to use if they forget. We'll probably be able to have some extra hoods that will get to you if you damage it or something like that. But I don't want people to forget to bring their hoods and then start, blowing through our supply of extra hoods. All this is obviously very limited. Right now, we're only getting 5 units pretty much every other day. So everything's still, kind of on back order because of COVID. There is no need for fit testing because it's a loose fitting hood. Obviously, people with facial hair will be protected. Dan Olson told us that in the hospital, the respiratory therapists are using it pretty much for their entire shift. So the battery looks like it will last at least 12 hours. We're not going to be running them continuously. So I don't think there's going to be a great need to have extra batteries, but we do have to remember, in between shifts or whenever you have some downtime to just charge them fully. And, I guess this is the best we're going to do short of a level, A hazmat suit to be able to take care of the patients. I've used it. You can talk in it, you can breathe in it. The patients can hear you, you can hear the patients. So it should, pretty much, hopefully 100% protect us from the virus and stuff like that.
Frank, just a comment about this. So most of these PAPR devices have, if you see where the hood comes down, they have like an inner and outer. It's like a double, the inner seal you want to make sure is tucked inside your gown, right? If you're wearing a gown with this also, provides added protection. And then I just wanted to say a word about CPAP because we've been avoiding it. More research on COVID that we do, it is helpful and we do use it at times in the hospital to prevent intubation, but the risk obviously is the aerosol spread. With this higher level of protection, if you feel the patient needs CPAP, this would be adequate PPE to do an aerosolized procedure. Just one thing, if you do have them on CPAP, what you want to do is not roll them into the hospital with the CPAP running, right? Because then that exposes the entire interior of the ear to aerosols. What I would do is if you do have a patient who needs CPAP and you decide to do CPAP, you switch them to a non-rebreather when you leave the ambulance till we get them in a closed room, and then they could be restarted on CPAP. But we feel now that CPAP is not a total, never do it kind of situation. It's a risk assessment. If the patient really needs it and you have adequate PPE to provide it, then it is okay to do that. So I just wanted to share that. I wouldn't do it with just a mask, but now that you have higher level PPE available, it is not unreasonable.
Well, Jeff,
but if our BLS crews don't have it, it's still a no-go.
Correct. Everyone in the back of the ambulance would need to have the adequate PPE to do it. But
Right.
Some of the BLS agencies have been asking about CPAP now, and some other agencies as well. Is it totally never do it? And you can't say it's totally never do it, but it's those concerns. So, if you had the adequate PPE, it could be done.
Jeff, besides that one that I was going to just bring up, but the other issue is if we have the particulate filters on the CPAP, is it still as big an issue?
No, if you have the viral filters, it helps, just like with the BVMs.
Okay.
If you have a good CPAP mask seal and you have a viral filter, the risk is obviously much lower.
Okay.
Before we move off of this, Frank, do we know much about the durability and the life expectancy of the hood yet? I mean, I know
So
it's
I wore it for 3 shifts over 3 weeks, and I had 6 patients, put it on and off. Plus we played with it, walked around headquarters and wore it. I sat at the desk and wore it. Again, I don't know. I mean, Dan, do you know how long a respiratory therapists were using them in the, before they were changing them or anything?
I have no idea actually on that one. I do know that they were wearing them through the hallways, and they weren't donning and doffing them between patients. They were using them for their entire shifts.
Mhm. Jeff, are they using them at all in the hospital?
Not really. Most people are still intubating with, N95, face shields and gowns.
Okay.
But we do have them. And when we were doing a lot of intubations, then, anesthesia would use them and stuff. But most people aren't using them. And once they're on the vent, it's a closed circuit with a viral filter. So they haven't really been using these a lot.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know the durability of the hood other than playing with it. And, I mean, I put them on and off. I did it in the dark the other day, and, I wouldn't say I was the most careful, kind of pulled it off my head and stuff. So they seem pretty durable, but they are disposable. So, they're not permanents. There are more permanent versions of them. They're a fortune. And, the problem is if people lose them, or how are they going to maintain them or anything like that. So I think to start with, we'll probably go with the disposable ones and see what happens. But we can look at the more, they look like bump caps. They look like almost, like kind of hard hats with a face shield that drops down and stuff like that. But this seems to be what, at least from the not the manufacturer, from the seller, what people seem to be ordering. And that just could be a price. I don't know.
And keep in mind the basic hazmat principles, right, that you learned, because donning and doffing and decon are the, where you're going to contaminate yourself more so than wearing it. So.
Right. And the other issue we have too is that, we have employees with facial hair. So the other ones requires kind of I don't want to say a perfect seal on the face, but require, a little more of a seal. There's a gasket that kind of goes around the face.
This is definitely the recommended method for facial hair is a full PAPR.
Okay, so any questions on the three things, on the PAPRs, on the Halidol, or on their field termination? Okay. So then the last thing, Jeff wants to talk a little bit about the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines.
Yep. So let me share my screen, Frank.
Sure. Tell me how to do that again.
Just unshare yours.
Okay, hold on. Stop share.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. All right. Can everyone see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to talk about, I know that, there's a lot of, everyone who has a Facebook account is an expert now. So I realize that, but I wanted to go through the vaccine, how it works, risks associated with it and everything, because this is not a commercial to push the vaccine or not push the vaccine, but I just want you to have the information out there about the vaccine. And then we'll talk about, how to get it and so forth. But this information is from the CDC. So they do a weekly call with clinicians about different things. So this is a couple weeks old already, but it's about the two vaccines that are approved under EUA, or emergency use authorization, by the FDA currently in the US. So they're both mRNA vaccines, which we'll talk about how that works a little bit, but they're both currently available. Pfizer was approved by the vaccine committee of the FDA on December 11th. Moderna followed a week later. The efficacy of both of these products is about 95%. It's, I think, 94.1 for Moderna and 95 for Pfizer, but about 95% effective. Safety profile is good. There were a couple people who got Bell's palsy in the vaccine trial group, which was slightly more than the people in the placebo group, but they all fully recovered, and there was no permanent Bell's palsy. That's the only thing that was noticed. And then local and systemic reactions, particularly after the second dose. And these were things that were short-lived, but we'll talk about things like, fever, myalgias, fatigue for a day or two. So how a messenger RNA vaccine works is basically messenger RNA is, I know we're going to try to not go too deep into the biochemistry and college classes, but mRNA, if you remember, is what tells your body to make proteins, right? It's the messenger RNA to encode DNA to make stuff. So it provides instructions directly to the immune system, right, to basically make antibodies against the spike protein from the COVID vaccine. So there's no actual virus in the vaccine. An important point, contrary to what you may have heard, this does not change your DNA. It cannot integrate your DNA, will not turn you into Spider-Man or anything like that. There's no alteration of your DNA. It's messenger RNA, which codes to make a protein. It's very short-lived. It sends the message and then it's gone. So the way it works is you have the encoded messenger RNA is in this LNP, which is a lipid nanoparticle, which is basically how it stays together and enters the cell. It enters into your immune cells. The messenger RNA goes to your ribosomes, right, endoplasmic reticulum, says, make this protein. Your antigen presenting cells make the spike protein, right, piece that is presented on the outside of the cell. Your immune system responds to this, okay? So your B cells make antibodies to it, your T cells, right? They create an immune response that allows you to recognize the spike protein as foreign and attack it if you were to actually see the actual virus. Both vaccines are very, very similar. Both mRNA encoded technology. Basically, they have the lipid, which is what kind of holds that RNA message together and allows it to get into the cell, and some salts and sugars that are basically help to stabilize the vaccine and buffer the vaccine. So recommendations from the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which is the committee that evaluates all vaccines. Pfizer was recommended, right, on December 12th for anyone 16 or older. And on December 19th, same thing with Moderna for 18 and older. They recommend that when a vaccine is authorized by the FDA and recommended, that healthcare personnel, residents long-term care are first phase, that's phase 1A, right, which is what we're in now. You guys are part of phase 1A. I guess under Cuomo's plan, you could be considered kind of 1A, I don't know, but you're eligible for the vaccine now. And then next priority groups will come after that, and the next priorities will be things like police, fire, older people with comorbidities. So basically, the information was submitted to the FDA. They approved it. Before vaccination, you should be counseled that there are some local and systemic post-vaccine symptoms, right? But unless you develop a contraindication to the vaccine, and right now that is anaphylaxis to the vaccine or a component of it, or severe enough allergic reaction that you would have to be treated with like epinephrine or something like that. Local allergy, you can pre-treat with Benadryl and steroids. It's a risk-benefit analysis. Antipyretics or analgesic medication can be taken if you get symptoms after. So if you get a fever after the vaccine or you feel achy, you could take some Tylenol or Motrin. Protection for the vaccine is not immediate, right? So you may have heard too, some people got the vaccine and then like 2 or 3 days later, they tested positive for COVID. That's not a vaccine failure. They had COVID when they got the vaccine. It takes 2 weeks after the first dose, we think you have about 50% protection, and a week to 2 after the second dose is when you have the 95% protection. No vaccine is 100% effective. The 95% for these vaccines puts it on the level of about as effective as the measles vaccine. Given the current limited information on how well it works in the general population, how much it may reduce disease or transmission, or how long the protection lasts, the guidelines haven't changed. So even once you're vaccinated, it's still recommending wear the mask, social distancing, hand washing, and follow the same practices that you are now when you're working. And then this is basically the contraindications to vaccine, right? If you have none, right? A severe allergic reaction is the only real contraindication. And then precaution if you have a history of reaction to other vaccines. And then regular allergies like household allergies and that kind of stuff, not a not a concern at all. So preparation for potential management of anaphylaxis. It's basically you would treat it like any other anaphylactic reaction. We have in the hospital where we're doing the vaccine site, we have it set up. We're using the rapid response system, but we have, epinephrine and that stuff available if needed. I will tell you that so far here at NIAC and all the vaccines we've given, and we've probably given, well over 1,000 doses now. We had one rapid response, and it was for someone who had a vasovagal episode after getting the vaccine, but not a true allergy. Basically, we watched them in the ER for 45 minutes and discharged them. But, that's kind of all it should have. And you guys have all the things you would need to treat it anyway if you were to give the vaccine. That's something I want to talk about, is that there is potential to use EMS providers to do vaccines. We did at the CMEC and SEMSCO make it part of the scope of practice. And the state, as vaccine rollout becomes more broad and it moves to vaccination pods through like county health departments and stuff, there may be opportunities for them to ask for assistance from EMS in giving the vaccine. So you may get involved in that. And that's, infection prevention and control recommendations for persons with post-vaccination symptoms, right? Infection prevention. It's all this stuff is on the CDC website if you want it, but it's healthcare personnel and long-term care facility residents currently that they're recommending that they get. So that's how the vaccine works. And I will tell you that for any of you who haven't seen Cuomo's press conference yesterday, he made it clear that clearly the hospitals are not doing this right, and has nothing to do with him or the state health department or their distribution of the vaccine.
Yeah.
It's the Hudson Valley hospitals are not doing a good enough job giving it to people. So I will tell you, what's going to happen is if we don't use all our supply, he's threatening to reclaim it from the hospitals that don't use it all by the end of the week and distribute it elsewhere. So we have plenty of vaccine. We have plenty of availability. You guys are all eligible. If you haven't scheduled your vaccine and you're interested, Frank, is it Lynn that they're talking to about this to get scheduled?
Yes.
Yeah. So just let Lynn know there's opportunities here, and I know Good Sam has availability as well. We have enough to give all EMS providers vaccine. As long as they're interested.
Yeah, I guess there was a question about the second shot, Jeff, whether or not, if he decides to take that stock away from you, will you have enough to give the second shot?
Right.
Which is
So right now, when you give a first dose, the state is holding in reserve that second dose. So like they know all the people here at NIAC who got the Pfizer vaccine, 2.5 weeks ago, and they're shipping, for this week the second dose.
Okay.
Equal number. But as far as additional vaccine, they're not going to give it to you. And then the question has come up. Some people have had, I had COVID. Should I get the vaccine? If I'm going to get the vaccine, when should I get it? So if you've had COVID, we don't know how long that immunity lasts. We think that the antibodies will last, probably 6 months, but at least 90 days. So you're not excluded from getting the vaccine. The recommendation currently is that we still think people who had COVID should get the vaccine. You should not get it though within 2 weeks after having active COVID, and you can wait. The problem with waiting is that if you wait till you're out of this phase and we move on to the next phase, it may not be immediately available to you till it comes back around to the general population. What we're
Let me ask you this question: if somebody had COVID, okay, and then ultimately had an antibody test showing no immunity, where are you at with
And they're
that?
not protected, you should have the vaccine.
Yeah. Okay. So why, I guess someone who has COVID, who's in the healthcare profession, should have an antibody test, and then.
Well, but right. So CDC is not recommending that. They're not testing antibodies. They're just saying that, you should have the vaccine. That, it's not, having COVID is not a reason that you shouldn't get the vaccine. What we are seeing though, is the closer to having COVID that you get the vaccine, the more likely you are to have a vaccine reaction. And it may be a little bit worse than people who have never been exposed to COVID. So that's kind of the fever, the myalgias, the fatigue. You may have that a little worse and for a couple days, like 2 or 3 days after the vaccine, than someone who never had it, right? So you're more likely to have that reaction after the first dose, where everyone else might get a mild reaction after their second dose because, your COVID was kind of your exposure to it. So like your first dose, you're being re-challenged with it, as opposed to people who've never had it. they're not being rechallenged till they get their second dose. So, but you know, as long as you're not in the isolation period, it's been more than 14 days since you had COVID. I know that here you're not excluded. We would give you the vaccine here if you wanted it.
Yeah, Good Sam was telling us like 90 days.
Yeah, and I think they're going to back off of that because now that Cuomo's putting pressure on everyone to use the vaccine they have. They might back off of that, but the CDC says you may choose to wait up to 90 days. They don't say you have to wait 90 days. They say they
Okay.
believe you're protected from natural immunity for at least 90 days, so you can wait up to 90 days to get it, but they don't say you can't have it. They just say you shouldn't get it while you're in the quarantine period or the active infection period.
Okay, and we are having an uptick of people who've got the vaccine and are calling in sick a day after with
Yeah.
fever and, you know, and stuff. So it's
So,
definitely,
right, so if possible, you should get the vaccine when you have the next day off.
well, I mean, well, people took it on their day off and they're, you know, supposed to work the following day and they're getting,
Right,
I don't know how many people have 2 or 3 days off in a row, but
yeah, I mean, they're not infectious, they may not feel well. You can take Tylenol or Motrin, but, you know, we are seeing some people, you know, not able to work the next day because they feel fatigued.
right. Okay, does anybody have,
Didn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
Didn't
most
bother me
people
at
have
all.
told me that they've had no reaction to the
No
first.
reaction whatsoever. Yeah.
okay, does anybody have any comments, any thoughts, any questions on anything we went over? Okay,
Does NIAC only have the one vaccine that they're giving, or are they providing both of them? Or
We have both. It's whatever we have, you know, to give out at the time, whatever based on shipments. Right now, we're giving Moderna.
Yeah, I heard we ran out of the Pfizer because
Yep.
we didn't get
There
our,
was that initial shipment nationwide from Pfizer of what they had, and then Moderna shipped the following week, and then, you know, it'll probably gonna go back and forth as supplies become available. The one thing is that whichever one you get, that's the one you need to get for the second dose. There's no
Right.
mixing of vaccines.
You can't mix them.
and a couple people have tried to reschedule their second one. So the rule the hospital's been telling me is that you can go the day before or the day after your appointment for your second one, but they won't go beyond that. So it's one day before, the day of, or the day after. They won't change your appointment beyond that.
is there any information on, like, if you had to get, like, when you go to get the second one and you were delayed for whatever reason for a significant period of time in getting the second dose, if that changes the efficacy of the vaccine that you were getting and you have to restart the cycle, or it doesn't change it?
It's possible. It hasn't been studied. You know, Moderna was 28 days, Pfizer was 21. You know, if you're a few days off, it's probably not a big deal. You know, if it's instead of 28 days, it's 2 months or 3 months. We don't know. We don't know what the efficacy is after that.
Don't be late if you're taking it. Okay, does anybody have anything else? Going once? Going twice?
Hey, Frank, do we have any information as far as the nursing homes in our area and how they're doing with the rollout, or if they've gotten any of the vaccines at all?
I would have no idea, you know, what's going on in the nursing homes.
Frank, I can tell you that Friedwald, at least the staff has gotten it. I don't know about the residents because my sister works there.
Okay,
The residents not yet because of the storage requirements, particularly for Pfizer and also a little bit for Moderna. They're not sending it directly to the nursing homes. So, you know, right now the shipments have only been going to hospitals. So I think that's the next phase they're going to figure out is how to vaccinate the patients there, where they're going to send, you know, people to the nursing homes with the vaccine from somewhere else, or they're going to find a way to distribute it to the nursing homes because it's not stable at room temperature for a long period of time. That's the issue.
okay. Does anybody have anything else? Okay, thank you for signing on. We'll try to schedule another one in a week or two. And if you have any
We have a
ideas,
lot of open shifts. Come help.
please,
Hang on, Frank, Ray wants to say something.
still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I just wanted just to announce to you, and I sent out an email that we were able to get a 2% increase and no increase in contributions to the health plan. So everything remains the same with the health plan and a 2% increase. I also want to shout out to Rob, who's going to be heading down to Maryland, probably one of the best paramedics I ever met in my life. We're going to miss you, and you know, best of luck to you and your daughter, and I hope you guys have a great time down there. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rob, who's one of the original RPS paramedics. Very few of those left.
Yes, he is.
We're gonna miss you, Rob.
We are, Rob.
Rob, I thought
Rich is gonna miss you.
Pappers. Rob, we got the Pappers now. You don't have to go.
Yeah.
Yes,
I want to know who's in charge.
We're putting Rich Greer on mobile care. Rich Greer is going to mobile care, so you'll be safe.
Rich, who's going to supervise you now?
That's right. Who's going to supervise Greer? Okay, I'm recording, so I got to remember.
Thank you, Alex.
All right. We're doing the best we can.
Okay, anything else? Okay, everybody have
That's it.
a good day. Take care.
Bye, Frank. Bye, everybody.